So here you have the box for Zelda: A Link to the Past. Next to the fault record, which references the cardboard box, and the total score is 68 points, which is an excellent / very good plus, a very good score. Okay, let's look at the first item. As you can see, it's the front, the rear, and the sides, the 4 sides. The front cover accounts for 38% of the item. The back cover, or R, accounts for 30% of the item. And the spine, the sides, account for 32% of the item. As you can see, here's a penalty. For example, OW means obvious wear, which is 8 on the front cover, and serious wear on quadrants 7 and 5 with 16 points. Remember that we have another video on our YouTube channel explaining the positions of the faults. Let's move on. So the total penalty on the front cover is 24, in the rear it's 20, and in the sides it's 21. So the total sum would be 24 by 0.38 equals 9.12, 20 by 0.3 equals 6, and 31 by 0.32 equals 9.92, which adds up to a total of 25.49. So this would be the score out of the 34% it makes up in the total score of the box. The total score of the box, in other words, the front cover, the rear, and the spines, make up 34% of the grading of the box. And out of those 34 of 100 points, this one has 25.49. Okay, it's easy so far, right? Let's move on to the corners. Now let's talk about the penalties for the corners. The corners make up 23% of the total of the box, so it's 23 points out of the 100 that makes up the sum of all the items. So as you can see here, we have the 8 corners next to the different faults, such as serious wear and obvious wear in this case, which are repeated, each with their different penalties, and the total penalty, which references corner wear, in this case 29 points. So these 29 points are multiplied by the percentage, and that equals 16.33. That means, out of the 23 points that would be the score if the corners were perfect, this one gets 16.23. Now let's move on to edge wear. So as we said before, edge wear refers to the different edges on the box, of which there are 8. And just like with the corners, each one has its own penalty. In this case, we have a new type of penalty called LW, light wear, each with its different scores and the total penalty, which is 34. Edge wear makes up 23% of the box, so we will obtain the total penalty by subtracting 34 from 100 and multiplying it by 0.23, and that percentage makes up the edge wear in proportion to 100% of the box. In this case, the total is 15.18. Now moving on to the flaps, which refer to the external flaps, not this part but the part inside, and both flaps on the sides. Here, for example, let's open it for a second and I'll show you. Here we have the flaps. Here are the 2 inner flaps and the large flap, which is on the side. Okay, moving on. As you have seen, there are 6 flaps, each one with its naming convention indicating its position, the different grades of the penalties, such as obvious wear, minimum wear, or light wear, with its respective penalty scores, each one depending on its severity, and the total adds up to 35. The flaps make up 20% of the total of the box. This is the lowest value of all because the flaps are hidden. Therefore, we consider its importance regarding the whole box is slightly lower, hence the proportion of 20%. So to calculate the total of the score out of 20%, we will do the following: 100 minus 35 by 0.2. This gives us 13. And lastly, we have the direct penalties, bump or dent, and sun fade. In this case, sun fade is 0. There is no sun fade. And bump or dent refers to the bumps it may have on the front or in the back. If it has any kind of bump, such as in this case, for example, which you can see on the sides, it will be shown in the first item, in the spine section. In this case, it has a very small bump in the back, surely due to the large amount of manuals and such that it must carry along with any kind of weight that was put on it, and it's a direct penalty of 2 points out of 100. In other words, from the total sum of these 4 items, we will subtract 2, which gives us a total of 68 points. This number is rounded out to the closest decimal point. If, for example, the score is 67.6, it will be 68, and if it's 67.4, it will be 67. Now let's have a look at the fault record of the manuals.